Hi and welcome to my site. I'm Dana Durnford. Iceland recently said no to the global bankers, the Bilderberg Group. Same people fund both sides of every war. That's trouble, okay? Iceland has no choice now but to be vigilant against assassinations, against coups, against infiltration by this global cartel that wants a one world government, a one world order, a new world order. This consists of, this group, it funds people to be prime ministers and presidents of countries that it covets, that it wants the natural resources in. Iceland said no. That's like having one of the worst gangs on the planet as your next door neighbor, and they tell you to mow your lawn and you don't do it. It's definitely going to get ugly. So what happened is a corporation that was denied operations here in Canada known as ECA program, they're a mercenary, a private mercenary army, and they kill for a living, right? They are mercenaries. Now they just approached Iceland and said, hey, we wouldn't mind setting up a base down here. That's like having one of those drug cartels that cuts off everybody's head, saying, hey, we want to set up an operation here. Take care, we'll hire some local people. Woohoo! So Iceland is saying no, but I'm putting this video out there because I'm telling you, you got to be vigilant now. The more you say no, the more they're going to get angry and upset. The more they're going to try to infiltrate and assassinate. And you're a small country. Iceland is a small country. You stand a chance of putting an end and exposing the cartel. Right now, you are the mouse that roared. And literally, when you said no to a global banking, and you only done that because you had an uprising, you took to the streets, you took out windows, you stopped traffic, you ripped on everybody in power, you ripped their lives apart, you tore into them with emails, you went demonstrations, you phoned them non-stop for months. You stood up beyond imagination. No one even seen that coming. It's a wonderful thing. Absolutely fantastic that a country is able to stand up like it did. You done the right thing. Everything that country done, it took to the streets. It turned to violence. It says, no, we're taking our government back at all costs. And that's the right thing to do. Most of the population of the planet has no concept of the future unless it's on TV that night. They'll spend hours and hours to see what's playing on TV tonight, but they won't spend 5 minutes to learn what the Constitutional Bill of Rights obligates them as a citizen to be aware of. Your country, Iceland, doesn't have that problem. I'm telling you, you have to be careful now. Blackwater's coming your way, Mossad, all the dirty players will come your way now looking for revenge. Because they're paid by the biggest corporation on the planet, the Bilderberg Group. The people who print money, who devalue so much money in the country, they can come in and buy up all the natural resources in that country, all the factories. Everything that the country depended upon for an economy, they can come in and buy it all for pennies on a dollar and then literally run the country as a government. And your government just becomes a puppet government. You're just the front guy in the head of the shop. You don't have any stakes in that business. Even though you say you work for the government, work for the people, you don't. The corporations snatched your assets, your natural resources. Canada, surprisingly, turned them down. I'm so happy. I'm a Canadian, and I'm extremely proud of it. And as a Canadian, I have a right to put this video out here. I have an obligation to put this video out here. And make sure at least one more person or 10 more people are aware. And maybe they wake up 10, and maybe they wake up 10, hopefully. And if everybody does their little part, then everybody wakes up to this global corporation known as the Bilderberg Group that funds both sides of every war. It's not a joke. This is not some conspiracy theory. This is well known. George Bush was a Bilderberg member. Tony Blair was a Bilderberg member. Paul Martin, our Prime Minister right now, Stephen Harper, all Bilderbergers. They went to Bilderberg and they got all this financing, all this backing. 90% of the media worldwide backed them constantly with favorable stories leading up to elections during their, their tenure. And 90% of the world's media is owned by the one corporation, the Bilderberg Group. You really got to learn. You got to learn about the Bilderberg Group, and you got then to look at both sides. Who controls the Bilderberg Group? That's a small, well-established, like the David Rockefellers, the Queen, and a bunch of these extremely oligarchs out of history. And then below the Bilderbergers, you got the Club of Rome, NAFTA. They control NATO. They control the United Nations. So Bilderberg really is what you should be looking at, because they're the current ones in power. Paul Wolfson. You got so many of the, well, any major player that you see in mainstream media, any of the really global mainstream players, they're Bilderbergers. They're Bilderbergers. The Bank of Canada, the leading Bank of Canada, the head of that is a Bilderberger. And the list goes on and on worldwide, country after country. The Bilderberg basically is 120 of the leaders of the world who divides the world up into a big pie of 120 pieces. And Iceland was one of those pieces. Iceland stood up. Iceland is standing up again. They're not going to let that private mercenary group come in without a fight. But see, these people who print money can buy people, obviously, because they can send a plane load of money. And I'm not kidding you. They can print so much money to fill up a plane of hard, cold cash. And don't think they don't for a second. And they can ship that money into the country, and then the private mercenary groups will go out and put a gun in somebody's mouth and $1 million suitcase on the table and say, what do you want? You want that beautiful suitcase full of money, or you want to bite this bullet? That's the way it happens, folks. Make no mistake about it. So what that mercenary group will also do, it'll run psyops on major players in that country. If you're having affairs and stuff like that, they'll blackmail you. They'll look at your wife. If she's having an affair, they'll blackmail her. If there's an upcoming politician who's going to say no to them and say, no, I think they should get out of our country, that politician's front wheel will come off going around a turn and they'll drive off a cliff. This is not a game. This is killers. This is what they do. This is how they make their retirement package. This is not a joke, right? These people are running the world, and if you don't play ball, they send in the jackals, aka people like ECA program, that private mercenary group trying to enter and set up a shop at NATO's old base in Iceland. And NATO was kicked out of Iceland in 2006 because they were just bad people. But because most people are brain-fed with a straw, what they should think, what they should know, what they should act like, what they should propagate, what they're allowed to talk about, what's a conspiracy and what's not a conspiracy, without researching it. Like I say, people who research what's on TV for 2 hours, they won't go out and research Bilderberg Group, right? They won't do it. But in desperation, I'll put out this video and hope one person, or 10 people, or whatever, can say, oh, really? I better go check it out. And it's quite a shock to wake up and see stuff like that, okay? To understand it. When you first find out about these organizations and you dig into it and you start researching it, it's a shock to the system. You're going to have some sleepless nights because you're going to keep researching because you don't believe what you're learning. You won't believe what I'm saying. It's just not acceptable to the average person's way of thinking. But life is not about fairy tales, okay? Life is about your Bill of Rights, your Constitution, and what that guarantees you and your loved ones in the future. But as that gets chewed up and your natural resources get snatched up, then your future generations have nothing, only slavery. Right now, Canadians are slaves, Americans are slaves, the world is slaves to this global elite. And Iceland woke up. Iceland said no. Right? That's like the first ones we know of. And just said no. They voted them down. Normally all the government would have been so paralyzed with fear to say no, they would have voted anyway, yes. But because Iceland is such a small country, and all these riots and all these street blockades and all these running battles with the police, they said, no, I better not. My country's too small. I'll be torn apart. That was the only deterrent. Whereas in big countries, it's when the crowd wakes up. And that country woke up to the Bilderberg Group, to the people who funded both sides of every war, to the people that entire existence is based off of human misery. Okay, folks, I'm running out of time here, obviously, but best wishes to you and your loved ones. Go research Bilderberg Group. Go watch Fall of the Republic. Go watch Endgame, Terror Storm. Take care.